hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked, and they were not ashamed. This is the word of the Lord. Well, guys, here we are, the big day. As we get started, I do want to say it is an absolute honor to be a part of this day, a part of this moment with you guys. And as you mark this, the biggest transition of your lives in this marriage ceremony, I do want us to pause and look back for a few minutes at the very first marriage ceremony, the passage that I just read out of Genesis 2. Now, like any good story, this passage, it starts us with a conflict. Verse 18, it says, "It is not good for the man to be alone." And so, if you can picture it, the first man, Adam, has just been given the gift of life. He's placed in paradise. He's surrounded by this breathtaking scenery and all these diverse animals, and yet, because there's not someone like him, it says that he was alone. And then one morning, the man wakes up and he sees the woman. Adam meets Eve, and after the quickest engagement in history, the father walks the bride down the aisle, only this time, the father is God himself. And what's the man do? Adam sees Eve and he breaks out into this spontaneous poem, the first song in history. He says, "At last, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." And he's inspired because he sees someone who is just enough like him to be a companion, but just enough different to also draw him. And so he celebrates that moment with the first work of art in history, this poem. And we see him drawn, we see him captivated. And right now, that is what we are here to celebrate today more than anything, because the two of you have been drawn to one another, that you have been captivated. You found someone who's just enough like you, adventurous, loyal, loves Christ, but also just different enough. A guy from New York and a girl from Southern California, just enough different to be drawn to one another. And that's a beautiful thing. Celebrate that beyond today, because it's in that celebration that you'll be more able to truly love, serve, and protect one another. But of course, that charge to love one another well is not always easy. It may be easy now, it may be easy in the engagement and at the beginning of marriage. The question is, how do you love one another well for years, for 20 years, for 30 years? How do you love and care for one another well for the rest of your life? And that's the question that I want to tackle today as we get started, and I want to talk about it underneath two headings. First, the longing in marriage, and second, the Lord of your marriage, both very briefly. But first, let me talk about the longing in marriage. Now, one of the most powerful images that this story gives us comes in verse 25. After the man and woman are united, after it says they become one flesh, it says they were both naked and unashamed. Now, we think about that just physically, but those words meant so much more than that. It meant that in all areas of life, physically, spiritually, emotionally, there was nothing that was hidden from the other, nothing that was masked, nothing that was concealed. Vulnerability without a hint of shame. And that idea strikes such a deep chord for us because we all have this one overwhelming desire, like them, to be fully exposed and yet at the same time fully embraced. To be known, to be fully known to our core, to have someone who understands us, who gets us, who knows all our secrets, who sees all our struggles and knows all our complexities, and then we long for that same person who knows us so well to then still love us. Because look, there are plenty of people out there that we would say like us, right? But deep down we know that many of them don't really know us. And then as they get to know us, we begin to wonder, do they still love me? Do they still value me? Am I still significant to them? In becoming one flesh, as that passage puts it today, you're going to know each other, as Scripture says, like you know your own body. You're going to see all each other's everything. Certainly all the positive things, all their daily successes, all their small acts of kindness nobody else sees, their self-sacrifice nobody else knows. But you're also going to see all the baggage. You're also going to see all the self-absorption, all the pains, all the struggles. And the question then is, how will you respond to that? The question is, how well will you love them in that? And what if their personal struggle crosses you? How will you respond in those moments when you're in the thick of a disagreement and you feel frustrated by them, or worse, taken for granted by them? Because maybe you think you're going to have the fortitude, you'll have the stamina to consistently love the other person well, but your fear is maybe they won't. You know,